Hello everynyann! Today I have for you an actual, real cosplay! Wow, we are all shocked! Me, I am the most shocked of all of us here. So we had a Lord of the Rings theme event, and originally I wanted to go as like an elf NPC, but then my train of thought derailed and here we are. Please just subscribe, okay? Help a girl out. Also, I think the lighting is gonna change really soon. Unfortunately, I have been dilly-dallying and I don't have money for actual lighting, so hopefully we will fix it in post, but we probably won't. This video is going great already. So we're gonna start with the clothes. And since I have recently become obsessed with making these corset tops, now all of my outfits have these corset tops. All of the future costumes, the future cosplays, they're everywhere. They have become 30% of my personality. First, I gathered some leftover pink fabrics I had at home. Then I took the pattern for corsets I made and I cut it out of 3 different fabrics. One for the front, a stiffer one for the middle to keep shape, and the patterned one for the inside. Then I sewed together all the pattern pieces and I got 3 corsets out of it. I also sewed the strap in the waist of the thicker middle fabric. So basically I read somewhere that it's supposed to relieve some stress from the seams in the waist because they are very overwhelmed. Is that the word I'm looking for? No, gosh, I am the overwhelmed one. Why are the seams overwhelmed? What do my notes say? Relieve some stress. Why is the seam stressed? The seams on the waist can pop out eventually when the corset is really tight. So this is supposed to help it out. No, I heard that somewhere and I have just been doing it. So I hope that it's doing something. Then I top stitched the top fabric on the middle teacher fabric. The autocorrects cannot keep up with my illiteracy. So I top stitched the top fabric to the middle fabric. I am sewing right next to the seam, trying to match the two as much as I can. But it doesn't really matter if it's not perfect because we won't see on the inside anyways. So we're trying to make it look better on the outside. Then I stitch next to the seam about 1.5 centimeter to make a tunnel for the boning. Now with that done, I am pinning the inside fabric and sewing the front seam together, and I turn that around and iron it down. Then I stitch down the sides. I don't know why I am doing that because I still have to put in boning. So I'll figure that out soon enough, no worries. Oh, now I'm putting the boning in. Well, fantastic. So first I burn the ends of the boning and squish it together, and that helps from the boning frying while we're trying to jam it in the tunnels. After we stuff all the boning in there, we're gonna finish the edge. I cut the straps of some darker pink and I sew that on the top and bottom. And as usual, I'm doing this the easiest way possible. I iron down 0.5 centimeter on one side and I sew the iron side down on the inside. Then I turn everything around to the front and I top stitch the straps down where I iron them. Then I just need the straps, so I cut them out from the leftover fabric again, and we have, front, back, we have the teacher in the middle again. Oh, I probably was writing thicker. Then I sandwich it together and sewed it down, and then I turned the strap sandwich around, ironed it down and top stitch it. Then I just attach the straps and make eyelets, and with that the corset is finished. Next I need the skirt. So I'm gonna be keeping this real simple because we have enough going on with this cosplay already. So we don't have neither the time nor the money. I also don't think aesthetically we can put any more stuff here. So the design is just a simple gathered skirt. The pattern is a big rectangle and like a thinner and smaller rectangle. And that's it. That's the pattern. You're welcome. You gave no advice. So the small rectangle is for the waist. So I'm also gluing the interfacing on it. So it's more structured and will hold the weight of my broken hopes and dreams and the gathering of the skirt. I'm then sewing and overlocking the sides and I make a very heavy gathering on the top. I attach the waist to the skirt just like usual, the easiest way possible. Then I took a pattern that I made with my own measurements, and yeah, that video is taking many moons to make. Also for this fabric, for the skirt and also for the top, I got it in the fabric store, but I got it in like the discounted aisle. There is no budget today. Why did I even spend the budget on? So I cut the pattern pieces out of the fabric. I also winged the pattern piece for the ruffles I will be putting on the sleeve. I mean, instead of the sleeve, but like, whatever. So I pinned the front and back of the top together and then I sewed it together. After that, I winged the pattern piece to sew the neckline like this. I always forget what this is called, but in any case, I'm gluing the interfacing on that too. I overlock everything I can possibly overlock and then I finish the neckline. So how we do that is we take the neckline and the round piece for the neckline together, sew them around, leave them over and iron it down. You're welcome. You explained nothing again, but I also gathered the sleeve. I mean, the sleeve. No, I don't know. I don't know what to call it. But I attached that to the armhole. And then I just sewed the button and I'm done with the shirt. So I also made a petticoat. I don't have footage of that because I almost forgot to make it. So I was really in a hurry, but it's like nothing special. It's very basic. It is white though because I had some white tulle at home. So I was just using that. We're like 3 minutes into this video and we don't have any more budget. Now it is what it is. But also like the white is gonna be much more versatile than the pink. And you can't really see it unless you're looking up my skirt, which don't do that without paying me. But and with that, we are done with the clothing. This was like really simple to make. Probably the least amount of sewing I have ever done in a cosplay. So I have been sewing before I was cosplaying. So I have kind of been relying on that to hide the fact that I'm really bad at making props, which is why we are making more props now. And speaking of which, it's time for the mask. So for the mask, I was following this tutorial more or less, and he also has pre-printable patterns for the tutorials, which is really awesome. Thank you so much. I was really not in the mood to make a pattern for this. Since we have a fully detailed video, I will not be going over every little details that I just did the same as him, because we can just go watch the original video for that. I will go over, some changes and screw-ups that I made. As I mentioned, the pattern is printable, which is fantastic. However, I am kind of poor and in between jobs. So I just kind of measured it and winged it because I did not have the money to take it to the print shop. Fun. So after I successfully drew that, the cat decided that she was gonna be a menace to society and scratch up my EVA foam. Unfortunately, I'm cheap as bitch and I am already pushing my budget. So I'm just gonna put, the damage on the inside, just like my life. So I traced all the pattern pieces and cut them out. Then I cut out the little tunnel on the inside of the big pattern piece, so we can have a nice break in the middle. And of course I cut this out with the dullest blade again, and somehow I was able to cut through. Fantastic. I glued the tunnel together first with contact glue, And after that, I also went over it with the hot glue. He is not using that in the video, but this is a budget version. And we will fix any and all mistakes with bedazzling. So I'm just really not worried at this point or at any point. I repeated the tunnel cutting process on the other pieces of the mask as well. And I also shaped those with a heat gun. I then drowned the tunnels in glue to make a nice clean shape on the other side. And it worked on one of the folds only. So yeah, great. I then fusioned the three pieces together and I had some problems with gluing them. So we would improvise a little bit here. Then I had a little try on, and good thing I did because this is way too big for me. And unfortunately it's in the part between the eyes and I cannot see very well. So now I either messed up when I was like freestyling this pattern, or the mask was made for men. So yeah. Great start, everybody. Okay, for any girlies out there that are wanting to use this pattern, I would suggest, measuring it, like the distance between the eyes on your face and on the pattern before you cut it out of eBay, obviously. And then just cut out a little bit in the middle on the pattern piece. And I think that should work fine. So once again, I am improvising. Here I cut the mask in half. And I cut like a centimeter off to pull it in and make it fit me more. And I cut it on an angle, so when I glue this together, it will create, the nice shape I'm looking for. I do kind of wish that I would also make the shape on the bottom of the mask a little smaller, but it is what it is. I am not doing this again. But I did cut the length off a little bit because it was also too long for me and I couldn't really move my head in it. I did also fix the length on the back and secured it like original video. We are now gonna move to the spikes. I did not follow the tutorial for this part because, the sticks were once again out of my budget. This is the theme of this entire video, out of my goddamn budget. I hate being poor. So I took some leftover lightweight foam I had at home and I have stacked it together. Then I shaped it into little sticks. First I went in with box cutters and then I also sanded them down. Of course this is not the smoothest situation and I used some of the quickie fix type of glue to smooth it out. Still not completely smooth and it will never be smooth, okay? I then did a few more rounds of the glue as well as the clay foam. I then glued the stakes on the mask, just little winging it all the time. When they were all glued on it, I did even more fixes with the glue and the clay foam. Then I did a few rounds of sanding and smoothing things out. Then I started panicking because I was corn crunching, so I just started painting over everything. I tried to even the paint out first to give it a smooth base paint, but also to see if there are any mistakes. But I will very soon run into a big problem. So I always do a base paint with acrylics, and there are two reasons for that. Reason number one, the can spray is not in my budget right now. But there is a second, more important reason, which is I live in an apartment without a yard or a garage. So that means I would have to go spray it outside in front of my neighbors. And so my neighbors are already pretty desensitized to me wearing costumes, but I don't wanna be also working on them out there in the wild. Yeah, but however, my method worked. But I have always started with the black base, so I was always darkening what I already had, and this time I had to lighten what I already had, which is arguably much more difficult, and I figured it out a little late. Also, I have ran out of the good acrylic paint. Please just subscribe. It's another rough one, okay? It's rough out there, guys. So I was trying to do like a pink gray so I could have a nice base for building it up. But yeah, it was very rough, as I mentioned. So I was able to build up to the color of the pink acrylic that I bought, but when I matched it with my shoes, it was way too purple toned. So I airbrushed everything again, but this time with more red mixed in, so it was more bubblegum pink. I also bought a shimmery pink paint to add on the shininess even more. When I had a nice base, I did a little shading and some highlights, and usually I would put more effort into the paint job, but I will be doing bedazzling, which is the fun part of this cosplay anyway, so you won't really be able to see it. I did varnish it at this stage, so the paint won't be coming off when I'm bedazzling, and ironically a little bit got like peeled off somewhere and took some of the paint off, you know, but I can hide that with decorations. This has been the best part of this cosplay, not worrying about any mistakes I made. They're all gonna be bedazzled from now on. Finally, it's time to kawaii this bitch up. I gathered a bunch of pink glitter and rhinestones and I just went in and gluing them on. Now starting on the piece of paint that got flaked away. And there were also a few other mistakes that just weren't that obvious, but are still there under all that glitter. I started with the rhinestones and then I moved on to the glitter. I don't have much footage because at this point Benedict was locked in, but I did want to make little stakes all glittery, and one of the reasons for that is because they are not as smooth as I want them to be, so I'm just gonna sweep that under the glitter so no one can see. The glittering also took some trial and error. I did add like 2 papers, so one catches the glitter and one like pours the glitter and then they change. I didn't get it on camera, but like one paper and one paper with glitter, and then you glitter it and the other paper catches it, and then like you switch the papers and glitter again. You're welcome. Oh, why are you like this? Who raised you? But speaking of my parents, this like truly healed my inner child. So my mom is like a bit of a neat freak, and if I was doing this while I was a kid, she would just have put me up for adoption, and not even like a real adoption. She would just bring me to animal shelter. She's an animal, everybody! Look what she has done to my low-budget Slavic hardwood floor. Always with goddamn floor. Now someone's gonna call me a sad millennial, but I hate the floors. So to finish the helmet, I varnished it to help all the glitter stay on. It didn't. And also like for the veil, I just bought some of like the transparent fabric and overlocked it and stuck it under there. And that's it. I should have like make some hooks and then sew it on or something so to make it stay, because I had to rearrange this every time I took it off, which was a lot of times. We'll make those improvements next time. So moving on to the final part of this cosplay, which is the mace. For the shape, I was getting inspiration from this blog post from like 2012. So I chose this one because the materials are cardboard, which are in my budget. But also like cardboard for a structure of something that you want to keep light. It's a pretty good, strategy, if I do say so myself. Sometimes it pays to be a cheap-ass bitch, I don't know what to tell you. I gathered a bunch of cardboard from the recycling bin, and of course they were only small boxes. Like, can no one buy a flat screen TV when I need to craft? Is that too much to ask? So first things first, the cat has once again destroyed my will to live. I mean, has blessed the materials. So this was supposed to be cut in like one big piece, but this is what we're gonna work with today. I cut out like 8 of this, I think. Now basically we are going for 8-sided mace. Then to assemble it, I glued one full side to work on, and then I glued one side in the middle, and then one on the left and one on the right. I also put a little piece of foam in between each of them so they would stay in place and be evenly distributed. Relatively, yeah, I should have measured at this point, but I did. I used hot glue to glue all of this. So it should stay in place, now that it's all drowned in plastic. So I waited until the glue was completely dry so the pieces would not be moving, and then I turned it around and did the same thing on the other side as well. So the block was set to stick like a wooden stick on the top where there is like a hole. I don't have that. So what I do have is leftover EVA foam. So I just like stacked it together and then made a stick shape, and then again hot glue that bad boy. It's always the EVA foam stuck together and hot glue. You're welcome, guys. Fantastic advice today. Now that we have the base, I will be gluing EVA foam around this. So I started in the middle and I used paper tape to get the pattern piece. Then I cut it out of a thicker EVA foam. I needed 8 pieces and I used the heat gun on them so they have a nice curve to it, and so they would also fit better. I then glued them on cardboard with contact glue, like so, and I did one half first, waited for it to dry completely, and did the same on the other side. And here is how that looks like. I used the same technique for the bottom, get pattern with paper tape, cut it out of EVA foam, and glue it on the base. I did some shaping to make a nicer connection on the bottom and the middle piece, and then I repeated the step again and then again. And so we're gonna look at that little speed run of me losing my goddamn mind. And since we have some time on our hands, we can subscribe to the channel and like this video. So now that that is done, I will be using a foam clay, and this is the first time that I'm using it actually, and I fucking love it. Now I haven't had this much fun since the first time I played with Play-Doh. So basically we just shape this with the moist fingers, and that way we can shape it very easily, and we can also blend it very well, which I didn't do, but no, oh well, I cannot wait to use this stuff again anyways. I just kept going around all the edges to give them a nice shape. No, because I am the worst at gluing EVA foam, if I'm honest. I am honestly surprised how some stuff I do come out looking so good. So my plan was to sand this down smoothly, and I did find out that I do not like how the edges are sanded on the clay. They kind of start to flake off, which was a little disappointing, and also threw my whole plan in the trash. So I went back to the quickie fix glue and glued everything. I drowned everything in that. I really should not be using it like that, but after a round of that, I got bored and wanted to move on to the spikes. For now, I do go a few rounds of the sanding and the filling in. But I just didn't film them all because, there was so much. I did some trial and error with the triangle patterns, and when I was happy with it, I cut them out of EVA foam. I cut them on an angle, so I got a nice roof once I glued this together. Once again, the gluing is kinda mid, so I fixed it with the clay foam. I did the exact same thing on the small spikes as well. Then I waited for it to dry completely, and then I turned it around and worked on the other side. At this time, I should have once again done some measurements, because none of the spikes are cohesive in neither size, shape, or how far apart they are from each other. I don't know if I have enough glitter to hide all of this. So while I was gluing the spikes, we now have a little hole under them. I glued a piece of EVA foam under the spikes and then filled it with foam clay. And I couldn't really film what I was doing because of like the angle. I could barely even see what I was doing. Sometimes I was just going in blind. So yeah, we're just gonna move on from that. So I did a couple of rounds of the clay and the glue and the sanding. And I also shaped the spikes on the bottom with the clay, and I did also even out the base paint. I don't have a lot of footage here because at this point I am panicking. Alright, so we're gonna move on to the chain. So these are the patterns for the loop and the chains. I just winged that. I will be gluing two pieces together so they will be thicker and sturdier. So I needed quite a lot of this. So after what felt like an eternity of tracing and cutting, I took the loop part and gutted the inside and then hot glued in a thicker wire. That's so it will have more stability than just the foam. I was also thinking about doing that for all the chains, but I was like, nah, it's gonna be fine. So if you have made it this far in the video, you probably see where this is going. After I did all the gluing, I then did a rough shape on the chains and loop, first with box cutters and then I also sanded it. Of course there were some fixes, so I patched it up with the clay a little bit. It really wasn't enough, but at this point I was running out of time and patience. Then I cut the chains on one side so I will be able to put them together, and I glued them back together once I connected them with a contact glue. I then drilled the hole in the mace and glued the chains on, and I tested to see if it works. It does work, but the chains are kinda stretching out even with the short time of being lifted. So I don't love that for me. Then the mace needed the handle. Also, this would ideally have more time and details dedicated to it, but it won't. First, I got a PVC pipe, a little too short, but it's fine, I can fix it. Then I cut a bunch of circles that fit in the handle and glued them on top of each other. While this was drying, I cut a rectangle to glue on the little slide on the PVC pipe and extended the length. I also cut out the shapes for the details, and I'm just gluing them simultaneously and waiting for them to dry. I then did some sanding and more clay foam. Then I took the chains apart again and I gutted the middle and glued the wire in like I should have done from the start. We know the cosplay is gonna be fire when the blood sacrifice was paid. Did it leave a scar? Yeah, I still have a little scar from that. I also glued all the remaining details on the handle, and I fixed some stuff on both handle and chains with the magical Play-Doh. It says I glued the Chinese together. I did not glue the Chinese. This was autocorrect, it's supposed to say chains. I glued the chains together and reinforced the cut with glue and clay. Then I drilled a hole in the handle as well and glued the other part of the chain in there as well. And she is done. Now all we need is some paint and bling. Okay, so from this point I did everything the same way as I did in the mask. Only the shape of this made it so difficult. And I also ran out of good red acrylic, so the shading was really difficult to do, which is why there is barely any. We are also suffering from some lack of footage here. The panic was real because the crafting took like 2 weeks more than I thought it would. So yeah. After a mediocre paint job that took forever, I started gluing on bling, and I glittered under the spikes because there were a lot of oopsies happening. So yeah, we're just gonna pretend that it's not there. I also glued some ribbon on the handle to hide more painting irregularities. Then I added my lafufu, which really brings the whole cosplay together. And with that, I'm done! This is my favorite cosplay I made so far. I really like the silly ones so much. I don't know why I don't make more of them, because they are so fun to make and also so fun to wear. I also learned something today. I can have a cosplay where I don't see that well, and I can have a cosplay where I can't really walk that well. But I cannot have a cosplay where I don't see and cannot walk in. There were some issues there. Unfortunately, next time the shoes will have to go, which makes me super sad because they're so cute and they fit the whole outfit so much. But yeah, I know, it's no. So, and also the helmet. So I did test it at home and it really wasn't that bad at home. But it did not occur to me that, the event will be a little darker than what I was testing it in. It also didn't occur to me that I won't be able to hear anything with this on. So yeah, that's like 3 of the 5 senses cut out. I can't see, I can't hear, and I can't fucking walk. Oh my god. But even though I am so happy with this cosplay, unfortunately, this is but a start. I am planning to also make an armor and enter a cosplay competition with this. But I am very happy that I had like a little test run, because it really helped me see what changes need to be made for this cosplay to function much better at like a longer convention. It's the shoes every goddamn time. I never learn my lesson. I can't help it. They look so pretty and I'm just a girl. I don't know what to do, guys. So like this video and subscribe to the channel so I can put more glitter on stuff. You're welcome. This is gonna be it for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.